I'm sorry, we can get into the Epstein stuff soon, or the Maxwell transcript soon, but I mean, Trump really is not even trying to hide that he's deploying the punitive power of the state on his own personal behalf. Obviously, his followers will interpret any deployment of the punitive power of the state on his own behalf as also on their behalf because they view him as a tribune, right? But the
Okay,
Bolton
wait a
raid
minute.
last
Hold on.
Friday.
Hold on. Here's how the Washington Post describes it. Uh, okay.
I mean, I
First
have
of
the
all,
order in front of me here.
it says pushing courts to reconsider the legality of burning the American flag. Is it an executive order encouraging courts to reconsider the legality of it?
Okay, it says, notwithstanding the Supreme Court's rulings on First Amendment protections, the court has never held that American flag desecration conducted in a manner that is likely to cause an imminent lawless action or that is an action amounting to, quote, fighting words is constitutionally protected.
Okay, this is
So,
stupid. This is so stupid.
I mean, so he's basically saying that there can be American flag desecrations that meet the threshold of imminent lawless action that therefore justifies, according to the Supreme Court, the punishment of speech. That would be the Brandenburg branch. I always mix up the name of this ruling. It's the 1967, I think, ruling that established the imminent lawless action standard. And ironically, Brandenburg v. Ohio 69. Sorry, yeah. So and ironically, when Trump was impeached the second time for January 6th, it was argued by Democrats and a small handful of Republicans that his rhetoric met
Okay,
the imminent lawless
I'm
action
sorry.
standard.
This is so
So he's
stupid.
like he's repurposing everything that he's been accused of. Yes, often I think on flimsy grounds for his own ends. So he said I mean, I don't know, we don't know for sure, but John Bolton was just raided seemingly out of the blue last Friday by the
Yeah.
FBI
We can talk about
after
Bolton.
Trump had started complaining about him.
Yeah.
Trump had started complaining about him in the preceding week or two after having ignored him for several months. And just I think yesterday, Trump put out a Truth Social saying that perhaps we should consider reinvestigating Christie for the Bridgegate thing from over 10 years ago because Trump didn't like what Christie said on one of the Sunday political shows. So, I mean, this is getting ridiculous.
Well, this is so funny. Here, the Attorney General shall prioritize the enforcement to the fullest extent possible for our nation's criminal and civil laws against acts of American flag desecration that violate applicable content-neutral laws while causing harm unrelated to expression. So if you commit a crime and burn the American flag, you could be prosecuted for that crime. This may include violent crimes, hate crimes. So if you commit a hate crime, you are for the flag. It makes no
So
sense.
basically, I don't even. I don't.
It says in cases where the Department of Justice or other executive department or agency determines that an instance of American flag desecration may violate an applicable state or local law, such as open burning restrictions, disorderly conduct laws, or destruction of property laws, the agency shall refer the matter to the important. Okay, so if you,
I guess the idea is that if someone, I guess the idea is that if some federal law enforcement official observes that a flag is being burned, they're now being given an additional impetus to use that as a basis to conduct additional investigation to see if there are any connected crimes, because they can't criminalize flag burning as such unless they just want to openly flout the Supreme Court.
But it's funny because the way they portray it on social media, the official GOP account tweets out flag burning, 1 year in jail, exclamation point. They tweet out a 1 minute video of Trump saying, if you burn a flag, you're going to get 1 year. This 1 year in jail thing, I don't know where it comes from. Let me search the word year in this.
I think that's what Trump has proposed. That's what Trump has proposed in the past. There's a tweet after he won the 2016 election.
He thinks the executive order.
There's a tweet after he won the 2016 election saying, calling for criminalizing flag burning, essentially. And then he never did anything, as far as I know, in the first term. But I guess now this is the executive order is what he's going to be nominally doing in the second term.
But he thinks they told him, or he's lying. He thinks that it actually implements. There's a 1 year sentence. It's amazing. And he goes, not 1 month, not a week. You will go to jail for it.
Maybe we really should only have lawyers become president.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to seem excessive that only a lawyer could basically become president, not literally, but I don't know. I mean, uh, it seems maybe preferable to having a reality TV show guy who like doesn't even know what's in the executive orders that he's signing.
Yeah. He asks at one point, like, well, he asks a
Mm,
technical question about it.
to
Okay,
pull up
yeah.
his tweet from 2016.
Michael, your internet is bad.
Okay, so here's what he said. Here's what he said. Is it
Yeah.
my internet's bad?
Yeah, you
Really?
look fuzzy, yeah. It even
Huh?
said your connection was unstable like a few minutes ago.
Really? Is it
Yeah.
okay now?
No, it didn't change anything.
Is it better now? Hmm.
No, now you're frozen.
I don't know
I should
why.
have. Okay, now you're back.
Oh, okay. I might have to. I actually see there's something blinking on my modem. Actually,
Okay, you want to go take care of
I
it?
might
Entertain our
have to restart my modem.
Okay, so you can
Yeah,
leave.
yeah, yeah,
You can leave, and I can let you back. Is that going to screw up the?
yeah. You got to send. You know what? I could probably. Let's see if I could just disable the internet. 'Cause I have like a cellular thing that might work right now.
Uh, oh, here we go. Perfect.
How's that? Is that okay?
Yes, better. I don't know what you did, but oh, now it's. I got a new notification that says your internet is unstable, but it looks better.
Yeah, I just got that notification too. Yeah, I mean there is something. I mean this modem. Actually, it's been working fine for a long time, so I don't know what's going on right now. But I
Okay.
just went on my cellular thing.
Okay. So people should.
Okay, so it's good now.
I think so. For the future, what I did was I had problems, and then I got an Ethernet cable that I just connect to my iPad, and then I never had a problem again. Anyways, uh,
Okay, I have an Ethernet cable. So you do this from your iPad, not a phone.
yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm on my phone right now. I don't know if you connect an Ethernet to a phone, maybe.
No, I think you. I think you can. I think it's the same connection. I'm not sure. Anyways, the
Okay, I mean I haven't had a problem like this in a while, so that's really annoying.
the
I
Bolton thing.
thought it
Let's
had been
talk about the
fixed.
Bolton thing. We'll get people join us for Epstein, but let's talk the Bolton thing
Okay.
before we forget. You see Laura Loomer, what she's been posting about Bolton and these other right wing accounts.
No, actually, what has she been posting? I love Laura, so
Yeah, I have feelings for her too. It's there's like a picture of Bolton in some year. It was 2020 maybe or 2021 or something, and he's walking on a street in Qatar, and he's like, they have a map, and it's like, here's like some government building, and so I don't know. The implication is that like Bolton was delivering documents or spying for Qatar.
I mean, does Laura have any basis for speculating that other than the photo?
I don't remember, but yeah, I think it was like these photos going around. John Bolton. Let's see here. Let's see if we can pull this up. Yeah. Anyways, it's too. I can't find it now. But anyways, I just wanted to know if you had seen anything on the. I wanted to know if you had seen anything on the Bolton raid. Had you?
Yeah, yeah. One second. I'm just trying to restart my modem, not for this.
Okay.
It's really, but because I
And I
want
will
the
look
internet
up
fixed.
Loomer. I will look up Loomer then while you.
Okay,
Do
yeah.
this.
So, I mean, one thing that stood out to me when the raid first happened was the New York Times reported that John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, had provided information to Kash Patel, the FBI director, that apparently formed the basis of the claim for probable cause that was then submitted to a judge, and then the judge granted a search warrant. So, in other words, the CIA is now involved in domestic law enforcement operations. I pointed this out at the time. They're like, "Oh, you don't understand. The CIA isn't like the one prosecuting him." I mean, it doesn't matter. The CIA is supposed to have a firewall with domestic law enforcement operations. That was like the big result of the Church Committee hearings in the '70s, which were on CIA excesses. And apparently, the CIA is involved in this like a domestic law enforcement operation against a U.S. citizen. So whether you disagree or agree with Bolton, which I've almost exclusively disagreed with him on various matters, although I mean, he's not dumb. Like, I mean, I did read a bunch of his book on the first Trump administration, and some of it was useful just in terms of like primary source material, even if I don't agree with his characterizations of things.
Yes.
Um,
I
but
have it actually right here.
okay, yeah, I
I'm a
haven't.
big fan. I sleep with it next to me at
I,
night.
I have an ebook copy. But yeah, I mean, if it's suggested that the CIA is involved in domestic law enforcement operations, that to me is what stands out the most. And um, you know, absent any further information about what they're supposedly investigating him for, I think like my initial supposition is going to be that it was just spurred by Trump's annoyance at his commentary on cable news and whatnot.
So so let's say if this happened this way, if the CIA, like in the midst of doing CIA stuff, like spying on people overseas, and they find out that like
I mean, these people claim they hate the deep state and they're so suspicious of the
okay,
FBI and CIA. Meanwhile, they love now the FBI entrapment schemes
right,
if they
okay,
can
but
get it, and they love the
regardless,
CIA
regardless
intervening in
of who,
domestic law enforcement.
regardless of who loves or doesn't love the CIA, if they if the CIA finds that like Xi Jinping they're spying on him and he's like Michael Tracey he's a great agent, like what is the CIA supposed to do with that information? They're not supposed to pass it on to anyone or do anything. The CIA can't arrest you, so they have to. What can they do with that?
If they find that Xi Jinping is spying on who?
If they listen to Xi Jinping and Xi Jinping is like, that Michael Tracey, our best secret agent, like it's so awesome, we got all America's nuclear secrets.
Oh,
Like,
that Xi Jinping is saying that there's a
yeah, if they find out
that an
information about
American
it,
is committing espionage for China.
yeah, because
I
that's
don't know. I
what
mean,
they
the
said
CIA doesn't really have to do. The CIA can do whatever it wants. I'm just telling you that in terms
legally.
of domestic law enforcement or on U.S. citizens, there was supposed to have been the institution of a firewall. It was actually a cross-partisan consensus. Now, I mean, you could argue that RussiaGate kind of did erode that consensus somewhat, given the CIA's involvement in certain uh,
But
surveillance of
you're
Trump.
sure that's right. That if you're right, if that's what the firewall means,
That's the
then they're
principle of the firewall.
but
It's not always
that's how it
adhered
works.
to.
So under your principle of the firewall, your understanding of it is, I don't think this could be right. The CIA finds incontrovertible evidence an American is a foreign agent or something, and they can't do anything with it. They have to be able to do something with it.
I think maybe. Look, I would have to get. I can't give you the full explication of what the firewall is supposed to consist of, but that was supposed to be the principle, right? Americans engage. I mean, so maybe if they're going to claim that some like foreign nexus, there could be something different.
Yeah, that's the point. I think.
But
Yeah,
well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we don't know what Bolton is even
sure,
being accused of. We just know that
sure.
they claim that they claim that there was the CIA somehow picked up information having to do with Bolton and then provided to the FBI. I'm just saying that there's a huge threshold to be met, if it can even be met at all, to justify why that is proper.
Mm. Yeah, and look, I don't doubt that. Um, Yeah, I don't doubt that there's some people are all trying to kiss up to Trump and basically work around him to, fulfill his wishes and desires.
I mean, it
I
does
don't doubt.
connect to Epstein because I mean, the Kash Patel is desperate to show how loyal he is now to, I guess, serving Trump or placating the quote unquote MAGA base or something, given the uproar over Epstein. So he'll do. I mean, Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard would jump off a bridge right now if Trump told
Yeah,
them
they
to.
would. Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I always wondered if they were going to actually invest. Aren't they? Didn't they impanel a grand jury to like look at Obama? I mean, didn't Pam Bondi just do that?
I mean, I might have vaguely heard that. Was there actually? I mean, aren't we not supposed to know if a grand jury was impaneled? It's supposed to be secret.
Well, we're way beyond. Yeah, the Attorney General's decision. I think it's Obama officials, basically. Decision to open a grand jury investigation into Obama administration officials in connection with the meddling in 2016. Uh,
Okay, did you see
yeah.
this tweet or this Truth Social post from last night from Trump? He says, "I just watched Sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on a ratings challenge news show this week with person George Slopadopoulos on ABC Fake News. By the way, what the hell in quotation marks happened to John Carl's hair? He looks absolutely terrible. He looks absolutely terrible. It's amazing what bad ratings on a failed television show that was forced to pay me $16 million can do to one's appearance. Can anyone believe that anything that Sloppy Chris says? By the way, he used to call Steve Bannon Sloppy Steve, but that's
Wait,
another issue.
ABC News?
Um,
Did ABC News paid him $16 million?
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount, but yeah, ABC News did settle over. I mean, George
Oh
Lopodopoulos or
yeah,
Papadopoulos or Stephanopoulos did actually say something that was wrong that gave Trump grounds to sue. I mean, he said that Trump had been basically adjudicated guilty of rape in
yeah,
the
yeah. I remember this.
in the trial, which is not true.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember this.
do you remember? So, I mean, that's actually a grounds on which I mean, look. I mean, if you can't make a defamation claim for that, what can you? But it is part of, like, obviously a broader strategy. Do you remember the way, meaning Chris Christie, he lied about the dangerous and deadly closure of the George Washington Bridge in order to
No,
stay out of
that's
prison?
a Bridgegate. Wow.
At the sacrificing people who worked for him, including a young mother who spent years trying to fight off the vicious charges against her. I mean, there is something to that, actually. There was this woman, Bridget, I forget her last name now, but she was, like, basically a very peripheral person and ended up in prison, but then her conviction got overturned. Um, Chris refused to take responsibility for these criminal acts. For the sake of justice, all caps, perhaps we should start looking at that very serious situation again. No one is above the law. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So that's him indicating that he watched cable news yesterday. He didn't like what somebody said, and now he's threatening to utilize the federal law enforcement apparatus to punish him. So I don't know. Why wouldn't we assume that it's probable that the same thing happened with Bolton?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unlikely. I think it's possible. It'll be interesting because he could. This time they did do a raid. They haven't done an arrest, right? Standards for doing a
Right.
raid is different from arrest. But I do wonder if what there might be here, like if
But
Bolt
the arrest can follow the raid. I mean, Mar-a-Lago was
could.
raided in August 2022, and then Trump had to turn himself in on those charges. I forget when
Yeah,
exactly, but it was after that.
obstruction of justice. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
It wasn't
Okay. Yeah.
well, yeah, for the so-called national confidential documents case, which I who are going to be making this point. I criticized all four of the post-Trump first-term prosecutions of Trump, including the classified documents so-called case, which everybody at the time, it was conventional wisdom that was the most solid case against Trump. Like, even Bill Barr, who was critical of some of the cases, came out on Fox, I remember, and said that this is a solid case, exactly,
Yeah, it was
et
a
cetera.
solid
But it was the most
case.
pernicious one, to my mind.
The
It invoked the
the
Espionage Act. It got into all kinds of issues as to whether the president has the authority to basically control the classification regimen, and ended up getting basically thrown out anyway. So
we got thrown out
yeah,
not on those grounds.
and so now, if something similar went on to underpin this raid of Bolton and potentially even charge him, I'm going to have the same attitude. But I'm going to be very much in a
Uh,
lonely category on that.
Yeah. So yeah, I always wondered why he was in Qatar. All it is, it's a video of Bolton once apparently walking down the street in Qatar. He's wearing a long sleeve like turtleneck. It must be very hot there. Anyways,
He probably went to
um,
some conference. So what?
probably
I mean, he probably got paid an excessive amount of money to go
yeah,
speak at some conference. I mean, it's probably not some huge
yeah,
mystery.
yeah.
And like
Anyway,
doesn't Laura basically agree with Bolton on like most foreign policy issues? Like, I know they would agree on
probably yeah.
Israel. I know they would definitely agree on Israel.
Yeah, they would. That's true. I guess the only difference is he doesn't like Trump and she loves Trump, right? And that's a pretty big difference.
Well, I know she's been.
Anyways,
I mean, I haven't followed this very closely, but isn't she on a jihad right now with Marjorie against Marjorie Taylor Greene?
that's been for a while. That's been
I know,
that's
but
been a
didn't it
long
ramp
time.
up recently or something?
Wrap up how?
I don't know. I saw Laura accusing Marjorie Taylor Greene of, I don't know. She brought up like her leaving her husband, and she used a not very nice term to describe her personal
Yeah,
proclivities.
yeah. Anyways, we drew people here about Epstein and
Okay, yeah.
Ghislaine. Let's finally give them what they wanted.
I have a bone
You
to pick with you. You said that you just dumped it into Chat GPT, and that was sufficient for you. You're almost as bad as the dopey podcasters now.
No, they don't do that much effort. They don't look at ChatGPT and then look at the documents. They just hear somebody who talked to somebody who talked to
Oh,
somebody.
AI gods, please tell me what you somehow subjectively determine are the most important parts of this
Yeah,
testimony.
I mean, I control F and then look for. So yeah, I told it what's kind of important. I mean, it's like what, like 400 pages total. It's not my beat. It's your beat. It's not something that I have a
Well,
limited time to read.
have no fear, because I had nothing better to do but read it
Yeah. Okay.
in its
So I did
entirety.
that. I asked ChatGPT for the most interesting parts, which is fine. People shouldn't feel
You
bad
should
about
compare
that.
what Super Grok would say are the most important parts versus Chat GPT.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be too much of a difference at this point. Anyways, the Ghislaine seems innocent of everything. This seems completely. Wait, what? Go back. Let's go back. What was kind of the evidence? And the evidence is that she recruited at least two underage women. Is that what it was? That's what she was convicted for.
Well, I mean, so you can pull up the charges in terms of what the jury convicted her of.
Mhm.
So she was convicted of conspiracy to entice a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. She was acquitted, actually, of one of the charges. She was acquitted of one of the more serious charges, which was enticing a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. So she was acquitted of not of the more direct claim that she would have been the one to make the enticement, rather than just conspiring in a conspiracy to entice the minor, right? And let's remember that this conspiracy consisted, that the government alleged, and that the so-called victims alleged, consisted of two people.
And so that
Epstein and
wait,
her.
she
And
was
she
in a
was convicted.
conspiracy, and so that means that
She was convicted of conspiracy, but by the in the main. Although, let me finish. So she was convicted of conspiracy to transport a minor with intent to engage in illegal sex acts. She was convicted of transporting a minor with intent to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of a minor, and sex trafficking of a minor. So they throw in all these like kind of redundant charges to basically to just stack the deck, essentially. And if there's like a minor like loophole potentially in one of them, they can get her convicted on another one.
yeah.
But the core like evidentiary basis for all of this is just farcical. I mean, I think I told you that after at the end of the trial, when the judge basically had to give jury instructions, or I think she actually made this instruction earlier, and this was otherwise extremely like a ridiculously pro prosecution judge. She ended up telling the jurors that two of the four supposed victims could not be used as basis for them to convict Maxwell of illegal sex acts. Or in other words, nothing that the two of the four victims claimed happened to them constituted illegal sexual activity. They could only use them basically to establish a pattern, or to fill in kind of the vista
Mm.
of what Maxwell had supposedly done. And you know, and so there was one with victim who purported that she was 14, right? Her name was Carolyn
Mm.
Adriano.
Okay.
And at the trial, she said that she was schizophrenic, and that she was hearing voices that were telling her that sex traffickers were going to come and abduct her children. She then
Mm.
later died of a drug overdose. So, I mean, this was
Okay.
obviously a troubled person, and the jurors were being asked to rely on her testimony about events that occurred 20 years before, and believe with beyond a reasonable doubt that that was a credible testimony. And the jurors were convinced of doing so, in part because, as I think I might have told you like a month ago now, or a few weeks ago, there was one juror who lied, or who like made a very
Yeah, I
grave
remember.
omission on his juror questionnaire, and didn't disclose that he
Yeah.
claimed that he was sexually abused as a child, and that he used that claimed experience to give a big stirring speech in the jury's deliberation room, saying like, based on his experience having been sexually abused, we need to believe all these victims even though other jurors
what
had
evidence did they have?
misgivings about their credibility.
What evidence did they have besides the testimony?
I mean, there was evidence. They used flight logs and stuff. They used in terms of Carolyn. I'm trying to remember now what other evidence was furnished. I think there was. I think Carolyn did potentially go to the Palm Beach house, but she was like with her mother. It's not even clear. Like Ghislaine, I think disputes that she was even 14 when she first would have encountered them, which I think is probable. But she was, a minor at least when certain things happened. But
So we don't have like.
here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. To the extent that Carolyn claimed that she was ever sex trafficked by anyone, she claimed that she was trafficked by Virginia Guiffre. She claimed I'm serious. Carolyn says that the individual who was responsible for facilitating Carolyn coming to provide sexualized massages or even being present during a sexualized massage, it's not even entirely clear to what degree Carolyn might have been in a sexualized situation. And then Virginia would tell him, lie about your age. Right? So,
and so the conspiracy.
but this was probably someone who was brought forward to somehow accuse Ghislaine Maxwell of sex trafficking. Ghislaine Maxwell really had nothing that anybody can discern to do with what I call, like in that article, the Palm Beach sort of situation that did arise in the early 2000s with Epstein, where, according to Maxwell, he was apparently on like disturbingly high doses of testosterone. And he did end up in a situation where there were, basically just there was like a roster of teenage girls, many of whom were from the local high school. I mean, please. I mean, if you're got man in your 50s and you have all this potential exposure given your wealth and everything, and you think that's a good idea for you to get involved with, whether or not they're 18, I mean, you have something that's a little iffy going on potentially. And
Wait, so Virginia, could Virginia
Guiffre
have been charged? She was
theoretically, yes. Sure,
wow.
She could have.
And she was how old when she was supposedly trafficking this?
Well, she initially claimed that she was 15. Like they kept revising her age and the time frame. When Virginia Guiffre supposedly first encountered Epstein and/or Maxwell. So she initially tried to claim it was 15, and they kind of revised it up to 16. And I think it's pretty well established now that when she first would have encountered Epstein for any kind of sexual act, it would have been 17. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's possible, maybe even likely, that Virginia Guiffre, to the extent that she had this relationship with Epstein, did perhaps provide some sexualized services to him or whatever, because like she was basically, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but she was basically like a proud prostitute at the time. I mean, she claimed that she had been molested when she was like 7 or 8 years old, and then she was sex trafficked. There was this cinematic moment where she was a runaway. She ran away from some kind of like youth rehabilitation center, and she went to Miami, and she was sitting on a bench, and a limo pulls up, and in this cinematic scene that's like fit for a Hollywood movie. Maybe Harvey Weinstein would have produced it at one point. Some like notorious sex trafficker opens the door and sees her on the bench and says, "Hey, Virginia, hop in." And then that sex trafficker supposedly sex traffics her to somebody else. And this is all before the time that she even claimed that she encountered Maxwell and/or Epstein. And she. I mean, there's a good deal of evidence that she and her boyfriend, who was, I don't know, that boyfriend could have been charged with stuff too, if you want to be technical about it, because the boyfriend was like 4 or 5 years older than her, I think, but she was a minor. And I think there's evidence that they kind of had this little scheme going, this little racket going, where they would, go around basically recruiting or enticing or trafficking girls like within her age group, but maybe younger, to go and get $200 from Epstein if they just do this sexualized massage routine. So Virginia Giuffre could have been charged. She probably and she definitely could have been charged for perjured testimony. I mean, she's the one who said in depositions and submitted affidavits, etc., making all these outlandish Alan Dershowitz claims and then recanted them. And that's supposed to be prosecutable.
So there's nothing to tie Ghislaine. Like there's nothing, and really, except these testimonies.
Very little. I mean, she says at one point that there were like 40 plus claimed victims that the government identified for the purposes of this Crime Victims' Rights Act, which is, by the way, another huge civil liberties issue that the people who are just fanatical about this stuff don't care to even consider. It was a 2004 statute that was enacted, signed into law by George W. Bush. It was pushed by this Arizona Senator Republican John Kyle, who was like all about tough on crime, prosecutorial, basically giving the prosecutors every possible resource to supposedly protect victims or prioritize their interests. But what it essentially required, or was thought to inquire, or argued to require, was that the government had an affirmative duty to notify supposed victims that they had identified, even the defendant who supposedly victimized those victims had been found guilty or had pleaded guilty, right? So, like, how can the government just
Michael, I don't have you. Michael, you are not there anymore.
Palm Beach victims?
Michael, you were cut off.
I'm not there?
You weren't there for a while. Now you're back.
Oh, what's the last thing you heard me say?
Something John Kyle gave.
Yeah, it's actually back. So let me see if I can put the internet back on. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes. But you've now frozen. You froze, and now you're not frozen. Yeah.
Hello.
I see you moving. I see you talking. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What's the last thing you heard? What's the last thing you heard me say?
Told you, John Kyle, something.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
victims,
okay, so yeah. So there's a whole can of worms to be opened with respect to whether that Crime Victims' Rights Act law and the fact that the government was under some affirmative obligation to identify these individuals that it had designated as victims, even aside from even before that, even before Epstein pleaded guilty, because that's what the later litigation was about. Like, the government supposedly had harmed these supposed victims by not informing them that they were victims sufficiently prior to the entry of the guilty plea. That's sort of another issue. Maxwell says in this deposition that of the universe of victims that had been designated by the government in this Palm Beach phase, she had never encountered any of them. She never knew any of them. And she's right in that there was no claim at the time. In the initial Palm Beach investigation, and even the initial federal investigation that then came in to buttress the Palm Beach investigation, no one ever claimed that Maxwell was involved.
Uh-huh. And when did people start claiming she was involved?
Well, much later, after Guiffre came onto the scene. So Guiffre first, I mean, I should probably be more specific about this in the future, because Guiffre was a Jane Doe by 2009 in one of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. No, sorry. I'm maybe mixing it up, but there was some litigation that Virginia Guiffre was party to as a Jane Doe in 2009. I think it might have been an individual claim, or I think it was probably a Crime Victims' Rights Act claim, although I'm not 100% sure. Either way, and that's when she's first sort of introduced some of the claims, not the most outlandish ones. The most outlandish ones came in 2014, and in that 2014 motion for joinder that Bradley Edwards and Paul Cassell filed on her behalf. By the way, not to get derailed, but Bradley Edwards is showing up again at the Capitol on September 3rd with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who I generally, and if I have respect for any members of Congress, which is rare, they're going to be two of the members that I have at least some degree of respect for. Like, Ro Khanna actually is pretty unusually accessible. Thomas Massie does, like, have some independence, and he's intelligent. He knows all about, like, arcane legislative procedure. He isn't cowed by Trump. But they're sort of sullying themselves by attaching to this guy and to the victims that he's supposedly going to be hauling out on September 3rd, and they won't tell us in advance who the supposed victims are. But
Oh
anyway,
wow, they're gonna have a big reveal, like
yeah,
the
they're
new
going to have
Epstein
a bigger reveal.
victims, like it's a band or something. It's
Well, no, it's not a reunion band. They're saying that they're coming out for the first time. It's like the debut
yeah.
of a new
They're
band.
a new release. They're getting an update. Yeah, we're getting a new.
Yeah, it's like you know how like a girl band might be debuted at some point, like Spice Girls or something. That's what it's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
it's like a Pokemon or something.
Although
They have
these are
new
women, these
victims.
women are full adults. I mean, that's the thing. It's not, I mean, you can maybe understand if for some reason there was
It's
some
gonna be
need
yeah.
to haul out
Well,
like actual children victims. The youngest these women can be at this point is, I don't know, 32 or something like that, maybe even older. Um, so
and they're that's interesting. So they might come out and just be like, so they could say anything at this point. They could say Trump molested us, and they could have like two congressmen sitting there like standing them right. The standards of evidence of this stuff is so low that like
non-existent.
yeah. So why wouldn't you just pick someone? Why wouldn't you if you're a
Well, I
girl
don't
who
think.
live?
Okay, so Bradley Edwards knows what he's doing.
Uh,
Very skillful guy. He's not
okay.
gonna, I don't think, have them make a direct accusation against a particular individual
Mhm.
other than Epstein and or Maxwell. Most likely. I don't know for sure. I doubt that he'll have them come and say anything about Trump.
Say Trump touched
Because
him or
that's
something.
because if they say that in public, then that can be grounds for I mean, Trump is the first person probably to file a defamation
Well,
lawsuit,
I
right?
mean, but
Yeah, in other words, they're not this is a public press conference. It's not under the cover of a litigation privilege.
no, but you can lie in a public press conference, and if Trump wants to sue you, the president is suing to shut up victims. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be something.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know. I think Bradley Edwards, I mean, I get the impression that he's actually a Republican. I'm not 100% sure. I think he's probably sympathetic to Trump. If you read his 2020 book, he um he recounts how there was a time when Trump had been subpoenaed to testify in like an early phase of the litigation. I think it was '09,
Mm.
and Edwards praises Trump for being so assertive and helpful and not like stymieing them at all. In other words, Trump like kind of was contacted about this and proactively like volunteered whatever information he had. And Edwards said that there was no reason to think that Trump was implicated in any wrongdoing, or more or less that. Whereas on the Bill Clinton stuff seemed to animate Edwards more. Remember, this guy was he was like a prosecutor from Jacksonville, Florida, I think it was, or maybe not Jacksonville, but somewhere. And
Oh my god, this website. My god, have you ever looked at his website?
Bradley Edwards, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's Edwards Henderson right now, right?
It's so flashy. It's like, the man who brought down Jeffrey Epstein. It's all about Jeffrey Epstein and the media
Is it his
coverage of it.
Is it his law firm website?
Yeah, it's crime it's called crimevictimlawfirm.com. We take causes, not cases. Get your voice back. Yeah, this is for you if you're a oh my goodness. This
I mean,
is dirty.
one of the weirdest things about Edwards's book, which I'm glad that I read. I'm glad I'm like so ridiculously deep into the stuff that I actually did read his 2020 book called Relentless Pursuit. Um, One of the weirdest things is that he ended up. I mean, he describes how he had this personal rapport almost with Epstein, where in a somewhat irregular way they would have private meetings together at Starbucks semi frequently.
Mm.
They would speak together like directly on the phone, even though they were litigants against one another in this like overlapping like 10 years of litigation, right? And so you could tell like Edwards had like some kind of, I don't know if you want to say fondness, but he had like, I don't know, some degree of admiration or something for Epstein to the degree that by November of 2018, right? Finally, this litigation that Epstein filed against Edwards came to a head. Epstein filed this against Edwards like 10 years before, or almost 10 years before, basically accusing Edwards of legal misconduct because the law firm that Edwards had worked for in like '08, '09, around then, um, was run by this guy, Scott Rothstein. That's the guy who hired Edwards. And Scott Rothstein ended up absconding the United States to Morocco, and ended up getting charged with basically running a giant Ponzi scheme out of the law firm. And at the time, it was said to be the biggest Ponzi scheme in U.S. history, other than Bernie Madoff.
So this was a partner of Bradley Edwards, you're saying?
This was Edwards' boss, essentially. Edwards worked at
Uh,
this law firm. He was pretty young at the time. I think he was just like maybe 30, in his early 30s. So he wouldn't have been like a partner maybe yet. And this Ponzi scheme that Scott Rothstein was running basically set up this situation. I mean, this is no one knows any of this. I mean, it's weird. It's in Edwards's book, and it should be like maybe examined a little bit more critically. But I don't know. Did anybody read that book other than maybe like a handful of people who wanted to like support the victim's lawyer, and probably never read it and like threw it into some into like the storage bin or something? But Edwards says that, or so what Scott Rothstein was doing to run this Ponzi scheme was he would go to, because he like was living a flamboyant lifestyle. His accounts were like totally out of whack. He was hugely opulent in his lifestyle. So what he ended up doing was in this is in Fort Lauderdale, I believe. And Scott Rothstein would go to wealthy potential investors and tell them, "Look, here's an investment opportunity for you. You can invest in our firm, and we assure you that we have ongoing litigation against very wealthy individuals who have been accused of sexual misconduct
mm,
or even sexual misconduct with minors. And so, and we can project that they're going to be giving us big payments for settlements in the near future. So you invest with us now, you'll get a cut of the settlement, but like with like whatever percentage growth or something." And one of the forthcoming settlements that he was cited that was going to be coming was Epstein. And he used Edwards's sort of like investigatory material that he acquired before joining that law firm to sort of entice these investors to invest. And at a certain point, like the investors got highly skeptical and um, and like looked into some of the more of the details, and basically the facade ended up collapsing, and Rossi ended up fleeing the United States, like literally fleeing.
wait, so this was
And
before, so that they did not have a case against Epstein at the time. They were projecting that they were going to get Jeffrey Epstein, and they were using that to raise money.
yes.
And what year was this?
Now, Edwards denies that he was involved in the Ponzi scheme aspect of this. He says it was done totally unbeknownst to him. But I don't know.
And
Is he telling the truth?
so there was a
And
Ponzi
so
scheme.
Epstein sued. In other words, Epstein sued. Okay, Edwards, who had already been engaged in litigation against Epstein, saying, "Look, this whole Ponzi scheme thing proves that Edwards is involved in a sham." And basically, he was accusing him of like lawyer misconduct, and that lawsuit dragged on for a long time. Uh, Epstein actually had some initial favorable rulings to allow the litigation against Edwards to proceed, but it never got resolved until November of 2018, right when Epstein and Edwards were conferring,
Mm,
and the idea was Epstein wanted to figure out a way that Epstein said was quote fair that made it so that those two could get a divorce from one another finally.
mm,
And so what Epstein then had to, and Epstein agreed to basically deliver a statement at what was supposed to be like the trial to finally resolve that almost 10-year-old issue. Uh, and Epstein read a statement saying that some of the stuff that he alleged in that initial complaint that he filed against Edwards, I think in '09, was untrue. And in exchange for that, based on the terms of this amicable deal that they supposedly had come to, as like a verbal agreement, Edwards would then agree that his pursuit of Epstein was over. But then, little did Epstein know that secretly this entire time, Edwards was colluding with the Southern District of New York and the FBI and the NYPD to re-prosecute Epstein federally. So one of the most bizarre parts of this book is that Edwards says that he felt conflicted about this. Like he had a crisis of confidence. He felt he had betrayed Epstein. He felt that he had, quote, dishonored Epstein, who Edwards also calls the most prolific sex predator in American history. So, like, why would you be conflicted about bringing that person to, quote, justice, right? It's just so strange. And you could tell, like, a lot of this is told in a way to look Edwards seem glorious and heroic and standing up for victims. But just to tie this back to the Maxwell proffer, testimony.
I'm sorry for this website. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, rather, let's read the website. First of all, there's a contact thing where you can contact Brad. You leave your first name, last name, email, and then you have to answer the question: were you or someone you know sexually abused? And once you answer yes or no,
Like that's the first thing. That's like the first part of your bio.
yeah, and then it has him. He won an award, the Polis Star Award, Agents for Change, alongside Tim Tebow for outstanding contributions and dedication to. Okay, this
That's why I bet you he's a Republican, right? He's winning some award that Tim Tebow got. Tim
I don't.
Tebow's this big evangelical. Tebow's this big
I know
evangelical anti-trafficking guy.
I know, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, he's into the it's bipartisan, as you know, this human trafficking.
I know, but I'm telling you, I think he just happens to be probably like a Republican.
I mean,
I don't
maybe
know.
I don't know why he happens to be just because he won an award alongside Tim Tebow. I don't know.
Well, I told you he praised Trump in that book. I don't know. It's just my impression. I could be wrong.
Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter.
But getting back to the Maxwell testimony because it ties in, right? Maxwell is asked by Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, about these theories or claims that Epstein was engaged in blackmail or engaged in orchestrating a blackmail operation. And that's how he acquired his wealth, right? Because everybody complains. We don't know how he got his money. It must have been blackmail. It must have been through some Israeli Leslie Wexner thing that Epstein got paid for, like, producing blackmail on all these prominent people. And Maxwell says she had never had any indication ever that there was anything untoward in terms of some kind of blackmail going on. But she does make one blackmail allegation.
Yeah.
And I think this is new. I could be wrong. I had never heard this before. She says that Edwards, or that she says that Rothstein, at the time that Edwards was still working for Rothstein before the collapse happened and before he fled the country, that Rothstein contacted Maxwell's boyfriend. So in the early 2000s, while she was disengaging gradually from Epstein, she got a new boyfriend, and it was this guy, Ted Waite, who was the founder of Gateway Computer. I don't know if you ever had a Gateway Computer. I actually did. My family did it in the 90s. It was like it was a huge computer company in like most of the 90s. I guess it's still around. I'm not sure, but I just know like everybody had a home computer from Gateway for a time. And so in 2003, she got in a relationship with this Ted Waite guy, obviously a multi-billionaire. And in 2009, I think she says, I'm pretty sure, 2009, Ted Waite gets contacted by Scott Rothstein, according to Maxwell, and says that if you want to keep Ghislaine's name out of any of our litigation, fork over $10 million. So I don't think Waite ever paid, actually. And I think that, and Maxwell says that led, like the tension that ensued from that kind of led to the dissolution of the relationship a year later. And she really seemed to have been, I don't want to kid. She really seemed like she was in love with Ted Waite. And, why wouldn't you be if you're in love, if you're with a multi-billionaire, right? But she seems like, pining that that kind of derailed what was finally like a very comfortable situation that she had in her personal life. And so, yeah, that's the one blackmail allegation that was made. Maybe Ted Waite maybe she should have had Ted Waite just pay the $10 million because it would have spared Maxwell a lot of grief that ensued.
Oh, this is so
because that civil litigation is what gave rise then to the criminal element by 2020.
It's all coming together. This was a trial lawyer scam. That's what it seems like. It seems like they were out to get Epstein. They saw dollar signs in their eyes. They did the investigations. They drummed up the press coverage. They
and Edward
possible, yeah. Michael, you're broke up. You broke up since you interrupted me.
Are you here? Am I here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we're all here. Yeah,
okay. You asked me a few weeks ago, how is it that Virginia Guiffre ended up getting contacted by the Daily Mail journalist in 2011, and then she handed over the Prince Andrew photo and got paid $160,000, and I didn't quite know at the time. Now I know.
Yeah, it's
the Sharon Church
You're cutting out, Michael. You were about to make the big reveal, and then you cut out again. Michael, you're gone. You're frozen. Does anyone see Michael? Because I don't see Michael. Okay, I'll finish what I was saying. Since Michael does not appear to be. Oh, Michael is completely gone. Okay, he'll probably be back in a minute. Um, the yeah, this seems like a scam. This seems like we're getting all the kind of pieces together. This these lawyers, they have a fundraising Ponzi scheme based on the idea that they're going to prosecute Epstein, get money from him. Um, they drum up the legal strategy, they drum up the PR, the hysteria over this. They bring forward all these quote unquote victims. It looks like, and then there seems like there's a accusation by Ghislaine that they tried to extort her boyfriend to keep her out of this, and then they bring Ghislaine into it, and there's apparently no evidence. Um, there was apparently no evidence for Ghislaine. So Virginia Guiffre, someone tell me, Jordana Star says she settled for the 400,000 with, so she could sue. She could no longer sue. So they went to the next one. So they kind of exaggerated this thing against Epstein. Look, if you've got money, people will come after you, because if you're a billionaire, you have so much money that, like, if they can extort like 500,000 or a million from you, that's such little money to a billionaire, right? So, if they can get 500,000 to go away, like, people will just go grab onto that because they can get a lot of money for a little bit of work. And so, as rich as this guy is, and then if you could make it, serious allegations, all the incentives are pointing in the same direction to create something here. Ghislaine is also rich. And it's kind of crazy how this hit perfectly all the buttons. It hit the anti-Semitism button. It hit the pedophilia thing, which everyone's so concerned about. The human trafficking thing, the Me Too thing. It's just all there. It's like amazing. This was like a perfect storm to turn into a Salem witch trial, and I'm becoming more and more convinced that there's probably nothing to the Ghislaine prosecution. I just think that this seems like as bad as Satanic Panic. Not as bad, because it's some reality to it. Probably Epstein had some relations with underage girls, but that turns into, Ghislaine is in prison for 20 years. Uh, people seriously believing one half of the political spectrum believes that basically all these elites are pedophiles, and there's an Israeli spy ring that is behind all this. It's just a guy. The testosterone thing also, the fact that he was on testosterone is also very interesting, because Michael's right. It seems like he became reckless around that time. He was just very horny for high school girls. It could have been the forbidden aspect. That with the testosterone probably was too much for him. Michael says that you dropped out and the screen went black. That's what he texted me. I'm going to say, so people, do you see me or Michael? Wait, let me see here. Are you still? You are gone. I am still in the stream. People, are you with me? He says, Michael says, I dropped out and the screen went black. So hopefully he comes back. Yeah, it's just me. That's what I thought. Okay. So yeah, let's see if Michael is gonna come back here in a minute. Trial lawyers are just, it's amazing. Go read, there's some articles. There was a big one in the New York Times about how they use the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's all these technical requirements of the American with Disabilities Act, where it's like every bathroom or everything like has to have a wheelchair ramp, which like some small business in the middle of nowhere might not have, or a hotel room might not have perfectly everything ramped. And so like there'll be one guy in a wheelchair. These trial lawyers will send him to like these hotels in the middle of nowhere. They would just send them and then extort every business, $20,000, and give me $20,000, will make this go away. It is really a scam. I mean, the trial lawyers industrial complex is really, I shouldn't say trial lawyers industrial complex. That's lazy. I'm making an analogy to the military industrial complex. Well, it's like much less centralized than that. There was a case down here in California, USC. There was some gynecologist who had allegedly assaulted some women, and for a very long time after that, I think he got arrested and got sued or whatever. There was everywhere on billboards. Did your gynecologist make some some awkward joke. While you were getting examined, they changed all the protocols at hospitals now. So like women would get a chaperone, or they could get a chaperone. I forget what it was. So like basically, women would be watching male gynecologists, and sometimes it's like they were, making kind of you make comments. I don't know, like you make conversation. It's a very awkward situation, I can imagine. And there was probably some legitimate case to this. I saw Andrew Yang's wife was apparently sexually assaulted by her gynecologist. And yeah, that's yeah. I mean, so obviously it happened. I don't have any reason to think that. I have no reason to believe that uh, Andrew Yang's wife is lying. So I'm sure it happens. Probably a certain kind of man might even go into the profession in order to here's Michael. Okay, let's get him back. In order to prey on women. But yeah, I'm sure some of it was just they were following where the money is. Michael, Tracey, internet. So see, I fixed my internet. I told Michael earlier I fixed my internet. All right, Michael.
Okay, I don't know what happened because the screen went black, and then I couldn't even see myself, and I didn't know what happened.
Was it screensaver? Was it just like you didn't use it for a
No,
while?
my screen went just totally black.
Did you run out of batteries? That happens sometimes.
No, it wasn't anything to do with that. I thought you dropped out
the
or
iPhone's
something.
under pressure. I've had that happen too. You mean it went black? It's like shut off.
No. The Substack sort of app was still up. It was still active. I saw comments and stuff, but you were gone. I thought there was some connection thing.
I was gone, and you still saw comments. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah.
Where was I, or where were we? What's the last thing I said?
We were talking about
how it's all come together. Like we can
I just finished the thought while you were gone. Basically, it just seems like there is like a compelling story here of how this was cooked up by a bunch of trial lawyers. You think when somebody has somebody's a billionaire, a billion is so much money. And this is why it was so reckless how crazy Epstein was. A billion is so much money that if you can like extort a billionaire for like $100,000, that's nothing to them, right? 500,000, right? $1 million is not that much money. If you could make their life just a little bit difficult, you can get a huge payout out of that. And if you could go to court and you could make it something like this, especially like sex with underage girls, like even if you're 19, you can imagine like anything. People are going to say anything. Like even being in a room alone with like random women you've met is risky. At that.
Well, and it seemed like, and Dershowitz has produced evidence that what Maxwell claims that they did to her boyfriend, Ted Waite, was also attempted to be done to Leslie Wexner, who was another multi-billionaire. And Dershowitz says that the strategy that went into Dershowitz and Prince Andrew being named in Guiffre's initial motion for joinder that Edwards and Cassell cooked up before New Year's Eve in 2014, that the strategy was to use that filing to basically extort Wexner and say to Wexner, look, if you don't want what we just did to Dershowitz to happen to you, pony up. And Dershowitz produces some evidence that there were secret settlement negotiations with Wexner. So who knows how much money these people made?
What kind of evidence did he have?
Well, he spoke to Wexner's wife, and Wexner's wife said they had talked to the lawyers. He spoke to Wexner's lawyer, and the lawyer indicated that there were like a negotiations underway. And then during a deposition of Dershowitz, Dershowitz brought up the possibility that these secret settlement negotiations took place, and one of the lawyers at the David Boy's firm, Sigrid McCauley, I think her name is, or I always screw up her name. This woman lawyer interjects and says, I object to Dershowitz saying this because it could reveal confidential settlement information.
Oh. Okay,
I was trying to tell you, like I didn't know a few weeks ago exactly, although I suspected how Guiffre got in touch with that Sharon Churcher Daily Mail journalist. It was through Edwards, and then because Edwards was desperate to track down this Virginia Guiffre because he saw the Jane Doe filing, right? And the Jane Doe filing suggested that Virginia was different from the rest of the Palm Beach girls in that she at least claimed to have been on to have flown around on the jet with Epstein, which she may have at some point. I don't. It's hard to know exactly. But Edwards was desperate to track down this person, and so he picked up information about who she might have been, and then sent this Sharon Churcher off to Australia.
Wait, start again.
And
So this is the story of how uh, Bradley Edwards found Virginia
no, no,
Guiffre.
no. The story of how Virginia Guiffre ended up getting contacted by Sharon Churcher, the Daily Mail journalist, which then
Okay.
resulted in the Daily Mail first public sort of expose or public article essentially on Virginia Giuffre,
Okay.
for which he was paid $160,000 and published the Prince Andrew photo.
Okay, go back because we were talking about something else. So explain to me again how did they track her down?
So Sharon Churcher contacts Edwards,
Mm,
who she knows to be representing other alleged victims.
okay.
And this is while Virginia Giuffre is still a Jane Doe, right?
Mhm.
Technically. And I don't remember how it is that Edwards came to ascertain that one of the Jane Does might have been Virginia, but he was desperately trying to find whoever the Jane Doe was, who said in a certain filing that she was different from the Palm Beach girls, in that the rest of the Palm Beach girls, in that she apparently had been on flights with Epstein. And so, I mean, I'm missing maybe one little bit of information there in terms of how Edwards was able to refer Schercher to Giuffre. I just know that Edwards was the one who referred her. And yeah, and so they had this like masterclass PR strategy. And
Yeah.
so, you asked me before, okay, what's the bottom line here? Like, is Maxwell innocent? I don't know. I don't like to declare people innocent. Like, the burden of proof is on the government to show that somebody is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm now certain, with like 95+% certainty, or however you put that, like statistically, that in no rational universe did the government prove that she was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So yes, I do believe, in all likelihood, that she was wrongfully convicted. Because I mean, there's so much of this doesn't make sense, and like there's so much manipulation going on. And I don't know, like, why wouldn't she have been? I mean, the proffer interview starts out with something amazing, which is that July 24th, 2025, was the first time
Yeah.
that she had spoken to a government official or a law enforcement officer having to do with her supposed involvement in this massive child sex trafficking ring that has caused such a sensation for so many years. I mean, that's insane, isn't it?
Yeah. It is insane. And I think that the reason is I don't think it's like a bad reason, and that like law enforcement deals in facts, and there probably just wasn't the evidence for like it. So it's like if the law enforcement's job was to, as it is in the Trump administration, to play to the what conspiracy theorists want and provide them satisfactory answers, that they would have had a reason to talk to Ghislaine. It doesn't appear that anyone had a real reason to talk to Ghislaine. That indicates that there was nothing that ever came up in any investigation.
Well, I don't
It
know,
indicates she was
because
useful to talk to.
right. But what I'm saying though is that as I went through that whole weird history of Edwards and Epstein liaising with one another, even though Edwards was secretly colluding to re-prosecute Epstein federally, this was in November of 2018, right? So if they're re-prosecuting Epstein federally, and Ghislaine Maxwell at that point is well known as the supposed Madame for Epstein, who was
Yeah.
recruiting all these young girls to get entrapped in a sex trafficking scheme, then of course, I mean, if the FBI is investigating it at that point, of course they would have some reason to talk to her.
Yeah.
If only to potentially not just get information on Epstein, but maybe even charge her as an accessory. So yeah, they had plenty of reason.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right about
And
that.
then
Yeah.
Maxwell ended up getting charged as like a surrogate of Epstein.
But you don't. But it's hard because there's a self-incrimination thing where we probably are not going to talk to the FBI.
Sure, but they didn't even seek her out.
Yeah, they
She
didn't seek
says,
her out. Well, what did they want? They just wanted a scalp. I mean, they didn't
yeah,
think there. They probably didn't think. They probably didn't think there was anything there. but like they had the scalp. So what's she gonna tell them? That she's gonna go tell them there's nothing there? They just wanted to convict her because she had nothing to give them.
Yeah. It was a Me Too panic. It was a Me Too uproar. It was anti-Trump uproar, right? Because remember, so Edwards says something really interesting in that book too. Like he collaborated with Julie K. Brown, right? On her Big Miami Herald series, which is told almost entirely from Edwards and his client's perspective, uncritically.
Mhm.
Edwards was essentially the source for Julie Brown. But Edwards says he liked that because he wanted Epstein and others to believe that should there be renewed investigative activity, it was catalyzed by Julie Brown, not by the fact that Edwards himself had been colluding against Epstein. And it happened around the same time, right? So it was almost a useful cover story for
Oh,
for Edwards. I mean, this stuff is just incredible. I just think, okay, so here's my theory as to why she was never contacted, even though she would have been an obvious investigatory target,
uh,
because she actually did know quite a lot. She actually was somebody who was, at least at a certain point, integral to Epstein's, not so much business operations, but basically running his staff, running his estate, running the various estates that he had as almost like a property manager, right? And she ran his private office for a time. And she had firsthand observations of what he did do for Wexner. That's what people are always screaming about. What did he do for Wexner? Why did Wexner
mm,
give him power of attorney? Well, she answered that question, at least from her own perspective, given what she visually observed. Um, and I think she would have just been devastating to the case that they were trying to make if they actually had to produce her testimony. And so,
yeah.
what happens when she finally gets indicted and charged? Right, in 2020. So this was almost a year after Epstein died in prison, because they needed somebody to make pay for this, right? And she was the next in line. And what happened when she was awaiting trial? She was in this federal jail facility in Brooklyn, where she was put under the most harsh confinement conditions probably that are possible in the federal prison system, at least in a pre-trial phase. Like, so not a supermax or anything, but in terms of like where you can be housed in jail. Jail is like worse than prison almost universally anyway, but they put her under the most harsh conditions, where she says that they would wake her up every 15 minutes so she could never sleep, never get like a full sleep. So that was one of the reasons why she didn't, and she was in solitary confinement. So that was what she had no obligation, obviously, to testify at a trial. But one of the reasons why she didn't, even if she had wanted to, was because she was just in like a disoriented mental state at the time, as you and I probably would be if like we were woken up every 15 minutes and couldn't sleep for however many months on end.
I thought that this thing was. I thought we knew everything about this. I thought we were
We
getting to the end
don't.
of it, but it's
There's much more to
but
come
there's
out.
more. There are more. There are more threads to pull, and they're not. They're opposite of like what the conspiracy theorists think. The threads to
So
pull
few
are like
oppositional threads have been pulled. I'm the only one pulling them, really, and there's more to pull.
there is yeah. This is a kind of yeah. This is just becomes a farce. The more and more you look at it, and the more and more of a setup and the unfairness of it, and just like the sloppiness and the social hysteria. It's disgusting. This is terrible.
To me, it's fascinating. Like, I can't turn away. It's just there's endless. There's endless. Do you really mean somebody's got to do it, right? I mean, anyway. So people are saying, "Oh, why would you quote believe anything Ghislaine Maxwell said? Why would you believe she's telling the truth?" First of all, I'm not operating from a standpoint of just uncritical belief. Here's what I am saying. This is the first time that really there has been a comprehensive account given from any of the people who were accused in this. Epstein never gave a comprehensive interview, except perhaps to Steve Bannon, who's been concealing it. And uh, Maxwell, neither, except the only, we have some depositions that she gave over the course of civil litigation, but that's not, in a deposition, you can't just like freely sort of describe things from like in a self-directed way, right? You have to answer the very narrow questions that are put to you by the deposing lawyer. And so this is the first time we've ever gotten anything even remotely comprehensive told from the perspective of the people who have been accused, right? And so, of course, like, just as a mental exercise or an intellectual exercise, right? You would think that you would be willing to say, okay, everybody's been all we've ever heard up to this point basically is a narrative or a framing that essentially originates from the extortionist victims lawyers
Yeah.
politically expedient, politicians, other prosecutors, media who have no fidelity to factual standards clearly on any of this, low IQ social media people, whether they're MAGA or even like vague, I guess maybe leftish people who feel the same way. That's who's basically who have basically framed this entire thing. So even if you think it's possible she could just be outright lying, she decided to have her lawyers proactively contact the DOJ on her behalf so she could give a proffer interview for 9 hours. And that if she lied in that interview, she could be further prosecuted. Even if you think that for some reason, she decided that, okay, I'm just going to somehow, for some reason, go out of my way to get myself possibly embroiled in further legal problems when she has already been in prison for 5 years and has 15 more to go. Even if you think that she might have had that motive, which makes no sense. I mean, you got to explain to me why she would do that. Then, but even if you think that, isn't it worthwhile to at least suspend disbelief for a couple of minutes and at least entertain the possibility that she is at least giving her best approximation of what the truth is, just so you can at least understand what the other side is. I'm not saying credulously believe 100% of it, but when you're supposed to want to know both sides of a story, right? That's how you reason, or that's how you discover truths in an iterative process. But people don't want to even read it because they figure, oh, God, she must be lying. She's a convicted liar. She's a convicted sex trafficker. We can't take a word she says seriously. Oh, and by the way, she's just cynically doing this to get clemency from Trump. Which, okay, I grant, yes, obviously she has a motive to get clemency from Trump.
Yeah.
She's been in prison for 5 years. Trump is the one with the unilateral clemency power. And Maxwell does say, oh, she has such admiration for Trump becoming president again. She does some puffery, but that's nothing out of the ordinary. And as I mentioned in that little post that I did today, as I follow up on this, if all she was doing was trying to cynically appeal to Trump, why would she then also exonerate Bill Clinton in probably even more conclusive terms? Not that there was anything really to exonerate Trump for, but he said, Bill Clinton absolutely never went to the island. Actually, Bill Clinton himself has said that. Bill Clinton never received any kind of sexualized massage. I know, I was with him. Bill Clinton didn't even really have much of a relationship with Epstein. Bill Clinton was my friend, Ghislaine Maxwell says. I'm the one who set him up with Epstein because Epstein was a rich guy with a plane who could take him to Africa for Clinton Foundation events. So if all Maxwell was doing was cynically appealing to Trump, why would she undercut one of these little retorts that Trump has tried to toy with by saying, oh, don't focus on me so much, media. Focus on Bill Clinton and Larry Summers. They have more extensive and suspicious relationships with Epstein, right? So that doesn't make any sense either. So the fact that people are so unwilling to even entertain any of this as even being in the ballpark of being true tells you why there's just such an utter refusal to engage rationally. I mean, I was just watching a CNN clip where basically the consensus on CNN, in addition to the podcast world, because remember, they're all united on this. Alt media, podcasts, and CNN, they're all united on this and no other issue. But CNN is saying, oh, they were basically just essentially they're saying that she was revising history to cover for Trump. That was basically their take. So
amazing. Okay, well, you gave me a lot, Michael. You've convinced me this is still interesting, and there's just kind of a bigger, uglier scandal here. Okay, I'm going to post this for people who are joining us late. I'll post this for paid subscribers.
Is there a way you can go through and maybe edit out some of the technical stuff?
You could, if I felt. I mean, you could
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I had that much time, I mean, I try to get these out. They're topical. They're news, so it's not something I can take a lot of time with. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Michael. We'll continue following your work on this.
All righty. And read the Substack that I posted last night if you're watching. And yes, I'm sorry. It is one of the paywalled ones, but suck it up. It's $5.
All right. We'll see ya.